So on April 20th, 2022, the long-awaited firmware 1.4 was released for the Z6II and the Z7II. And everyone was hoping for some kind of Z9 features, but that wasn't the case. We did get AF improvements and some fixes when the camera is taking photos and some fixes for recording video. For instance, when using a gimbal, and the record feature through the gimbal sometimes didn't always work. But we want to concentrate on right now is the firmware fixes for AF improvements. Was there a change? Has it gotten better? Well, I've been using that firmware now for a month and a half. It's now June. And does the camera, as you see on screen, focus more readily on the subject in the center of the frame if it fails to detect a face or eyes of a portrait subject when using auto area AF? Well, watch and see. See if you think that this camera is actually improved. So I'm going to start by just playing back a very quick 50% frame rate recording of me approaching the camera, both with each firmware in the camera. I just recorded screen recording, and the moves aren't exactly identical, but it doesn't really look like much has changed here at this point. The camera's eye tracking sticks, but now I'm just doing a bunch of bobbing and weaving and moving around in front of the camera, and this is real time. So you can just see as I move, and you might notice a difference, you might not. I'm going to play this back at half speed in a moment. But what am I looking for? What can we look for to see if there's a difference? Watch how the camera identifies my face. Is it more sensitive in 1.4? Does it jump to the background more in 1.3? I seem to find that it does for me. This is after a month and a half of using the new firmware and just comparing. So I actually I reloaded 1.3 to do this test and then went back up to 1.4 to see if I noticed much of a difference. And I think there is a difference. So this is going to be played back at half speed in a moment. And again, watch the differences, not just the motion, but watch the way the camera responds to my face with 1.3 versus 1.4. I think 1.4 catches that it's a human face just a little more readily and eyes a little more readily, especially when I'm getting toward the edge of the frame, where 1.3 tends to like to jump to the background just that little bit more. So I mean, it does work in 1.3, but I think 1.4 there's an adjustment. There's something they've done just to make it a little more sensitive. And again, you're watching this played back at half speed. So that just can help you get a better idea and see if you think there's a change. Let me know in the comments. I don't think I'm imagining this after playing around with this for a month and a half. Now, is eye detect focus the be-all end-all? No. There is a very famous photographer who does beauty and fashion, and he shoots with a Hasselblad, and he manually focuses. He uses focus peaking to focus on the eyes manually. He made a really interesting comment about focus peaking, how he can focus on the eye, on the iris, on the highlight, all using focus peaking. So there's someone who's extremely professional and skilled, and you can go search that out. You can see if you can find it. But it just shows that our ability is going to exceed what a camera can do, because he's watching for that exact point of autofocus, or focus I should say, by using focus peaking and manually focusing his Hasselblad. So again, do you see a little bit of a difference here? I do. I find that it is just a little more sensitive, picking up my face, sticking with me. Even when I go out of frame, it doesn't immediately jump to the background. And the color checker is pretty interesting, I guess, to the camera. So did firmware 1.4 improve the autofocus? I think so. I do. It's a percentage gain. No, it's not Z9 features, but that's okay. This is still working quite well. Okay, so here's an image sequence. My poor daughter has been roped into doing this again. You can just see how the camera tracks her eye. Now I do lift my finger off the back focus button and she'll be out of focus for a split second, but immediately when I press, she's back. So it's working quite well. So what will version 1.5, 6, 7, 8, 2.0 bring? Maybe some more improvements, maybe some new features. We're gonna have to wait and see. But overall, it's nice to see the support for this camera.